Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Going Rounds podcast, episode 72. Finally got a handle on all of my equipment, I believe. Thanks to the guys on the newly branded Technically Unsound podcast. Living up to our name this past Tuesday for Tech Tuesday, actually doing the Tech Tuesday thing. I had some trouble, some big trouble. I couldn't even get on the podcast. I couldn't hear them. And then when I could hear them, they couldn't hear me. I had a lot of shit going on. But I am back. I got everything working again. Magix and Tommy, big help. That's kind of what we try to do, is help each other out with all of our setups and stuff. So, as I mentioned, newly branded, formerly known as the Rumble Podcast, is now Technically Unsound Podcast. And I think we kicked off one of the first few episodes pretty well by managing all of my technical issues. I think it's probably been about a month now that I've been having all these issues, but I'm just glad it's over. I'm glad we're done with it, and hopefully everything works out and stays good. Seems like it now, and I'm hoping that I don't have any issues going on. I feel like everything should be working okay. If you're out there watching live, let me know if you can't hear my sound, or if you can't hear, when I have music playing, or if you can't hear my voice. That would be greatly appreciated, but I think we're good to go. So, yeah. And to the world of combat sports, we have some stuff going on this week. We have a fight night in Vegas. Unfortunately, the Apex, but it's a pretty decent card. And then there's a big boxing match going on tomorrow night. I believe it's Friday. I don't remember specifically, but we'll get into it. And last week, wow, the fights last week were crazy. There was just people doing big things, slamming fools on their heads. If you watched, you know what I'm talking about. But it was fun. It was a good night of fights, a lot of finishes, and just a lot of exciting fights, which is good, and I'm happy about that. So, that's about it. How can I forget BKFC 56? Which we'll get into here first in a couple minutes. A new King of Violence was crowned, or the first official King of Violence in BKFC. And there's a belt and everything, and Mike Perry pulled that off. So we're going to take a look at that here in just a minute. But it was a fun weekend of fights, pretty much. And I mean, I didn't get to watch everything from start to finish. I kind of had to look at highlights of BKFC because I didn't realize that was somewhat of a pay-per-view event, I think. Either way, you had to pay something to watch it, and I got to see what I wanted to see, so I'm okay with that. And then the UFC fight night, I was at the event I had to go to. It was a big birthday party for a friend of mine. And, they made it a nice big event for her and stuff. So that was cool. That was fun. Sorry, I got a text while looking at it. But yeah, I was doing my thing and I was watching fights during the event. It's okay, though. We were just socializing. There was music playing. It was kind of leading up to the big reveal. It was a surprise birthday party. So we were all sitting around just talking and stuff, waiting for the guest of honor to show up. And the fights actually finished before that happened. So I was pretty happy. I got to sit and watch. I had Clark, who's been on a podcast before, there with me, and he was watching the fights with me as well. Josh, who was on the last watch party, was there and watching the fights with us. And we were just kicking back, sipping on some old fashions. Luckily, they had them there. They were pretty good, actually, too. I believe they were using 4 Roses, so wasn't too bad. That's not normally what I use, but it was pretty good. Speaking of, time to take a sip. But anyway, yeah, it was good weekend of fights. This week has been a little weird, for the most part, personally, with work and everything. December's always crazy in the way that we're either super busy and trying to get stuff done so that the holidays can just be free and clear and we don't have to worry about things, or else it's so dead that we don't know what to do with ourselves. And yeah, this week's been about that. Kind of dead, kind of boring, but it is what it is. Tomorrow's Friday. I'm happy about that. My wife's out of town, so I've been it's a little weird around the house because not having her here, the dogs are like attached to me or my daughter. So, but I've been taking up all my time getting all this stuff together. I did a little moving around of the room with certain things, my camera angle, not angle, but I lowered it a little bit. I brought it in a little closer, stuff like that. Little things I was just trying to get together and do. But, yeah, it's been an all right week. That's about it. So let's get into some combat sports news and get the show going. Next week, big pay-per-view. It's going to be this is the last fight night of the year. Next weekend will be the last pay-per-view of the year. Pretty damn good card coming up there. So be on the lookout for that. I'm trying to see if maybe I can get a guest on. But if not, we'll just do the thing and do what I normally do and get into it all by myself like I am now. So be on the lookout for the, little hint here and there of who might be on. And if nobody comes on, that's okay too. Maybe for the fight night, depending on what happens, we might have a watch party. I'm sure I can get a couple people on then. Now that I have all my setup together again, I feel good about it, and I feel like I can actually do that and have somebody in studio and have no problems coming over. Anybody on the outside, if one of the guys from the other podcast want to jump in. But yeah, we'll see what happens for the next week, and we'll get everything together, and we'll have another show. So don't forget next Thursday to watch. It should be a fun one. As for now, let's get into some combat sports news. And let's start with BKFC 56. Now, I did have a little trouble, if you remember last week when I was previewing this. I was wondering what the fuck was happening with the Todd Duffy Ben Rothwell fight, and apparently Ben Rothwell had to pull out of the fight. I think it was an injury. I'm not sure. I didn't really get all of the details, but either way, at least it answers my question as to what the fuck was going on there. I wasn't sure. I couldn't find anything that told me what happened to that fight. And obviously I was kind of doing it on the fly. But, when I prepped, I never saw anything. And usually you see that stuff. But again, that just is one of those things that the UFC does better than everyone else, which is let people know what the fuck's going on. And, you're never left wondering what happened to this fight or that fight. If you know where to go, which is fairly easy, you can find out pretty quick as to what happened to a fight you're not seeing as a matchup anymore. So, and this week coming up, there's already been cancellations and short notice fights happening. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. But BKFC 56 was a banger, as I thought it would be. Title fight, couple title fights, and then the title, I guess 3 title fights technically, because there was the King of Violence title awarded this night as well. So we had Mick Terrell versus Arnold Adams. Mick Terrell wins the BKFC vacant World Heavyweight Championship. And then you had, let's see, what were the others? Well, that was one of the main title fights. But then we get into the other title fight, which was Beck Rawlings versus Christine Ferreira. And Christine Ferreira winds up getting the win to defend her BKFC Women's World Flyweight Championship for the 3rd time. So this woman is a monster when it comes to bare knuckle. I don't know that she lives up to the Mike Perry of the women's division, but she's definitely a force to be reckoned with. And again, defending her title for the third time, it tells you everything. You know, Beck Rawlings was the champ at one point in time, and she's beaten all the big names so far in BKFC. So when it comes down to it, she's the one to beat, and she's the one that's giving everybody problems. So, but she, you know, she gave Beck Rawlings a lot she could handle. I mean, she busted her up. She bloodied her up. As you can see here, Beck got some punches in herself because she's a badass too. BKFC has definitely been better for her than MMA was, but she still couldn't come out with the win. And Christine Ferreira defends her title and retains. So we'll see what kind of a matchup they put her in next. But I believe that's the last event for them for the year. So next, we'll see what 2024 brings for BKFC. More big fights. They've put on quite a few this year, and it's been pretty exciting and pretty entertaining. So BKFC is doing big things. I just hope that they continue in that fashion, because it gives those MMA fighters that are wanting to get out of MMA and go do something else, it gives them a place to land. And it's been good to Ben Rothwell. It's been good to Mike Perry. You know, Eddie Alvarez is, you know, 1-1 now, but, you know, it seems like it's a good fit for him for however much longer he wants to keep fighting. And it hasn't been so good for other MMA fighters like Michael Venom Page and Luke Rockhold, but those guys fought the top of the top right now, which is Mike Perry. Just seems to be beating everybody, and he seems to be doing it easily. So other former UFC fighters, Jimmy Rivera versus Jeremy Stevens happened this night as well. Jeremy Stevens winds up getting the win by TKO, Dr. Stoppage, but you know, he inflicted the damage, so you have to give him the credit for, you know, getting that stoppage. So Jeremy, I believe, has a few fights in BKFC now, and he's been doing pretty decent himself. So this, like I said, this is a good spot for these somewhat older MMA fighters. I would say fighters that are just kind of can't compete with the higher divisions or the higher ranked fighters in MMA, you know, kind of wrapping up their MMA career. They move over to BKFC, and then they find themselves kind of with the resurgence. So I'm here for it. I mean, BKFC is fucking brutal. Bare knuckle anything is brutal. We've seen this. It's been proven. Bare knuckle MMA, bare knuckle boxing, anything bare knuckle, you're going to get busted up, you're going to get bloodied up, and you're going to get cut. And there's a lot of doctor stoppages. Mike Perry being the one to give them all out too, it seems like. But Jeremy Stevens did this night as well. And you know, Jimmy gave him a fight, but Jeremy did the most damage, winds up bloodying him up, busting him up as usual for BKFC. But the doctor stoppage was due to a cut on Jimmy Rivera's eye that they said he couldn't continue with that cut. So Jeremy Stevens gets the TKO win. So good for him, because it's nice to see that, you know, again, that he's moving on to something else and having a bit of resurgence and, you know, continuing on in combat sports, just in a little bit of a different fashion. So BKFC, I like BKFC, and I would watch more and more and more, the more and more notable fighters that they get, I guess. It doesn't all have to be ex-UFC fighters, but it just seems like those guys are the ones that bring the heat. And they have other fighters, other champions, of course, other guys that are fucking animals, and women. But you know, those big names coming over from the UFC, you can't beat that star power, I guess, that you have from those guys, that popularity, the notoriety that these guys and women have coming from the UFC. But it's a fun thing to watch. It's a fun sport, and they're just getting better and better. So as long as they continue on that track, we'll see how much further they can advance in the combat sports realm when it comes to their organization and what the quality of fights and the, you know, reputation that they're gonna uphold or continue to grow. It should be fun. I like it. At first I wasn't too into it, but now it's just become more and more of one of those organizations and one of those portions of the sport that is just entertaining, and it's reputable now, more than it was before. So they just got to keep putting those big events on, and they're never going to be the UFC, but maybe they can be the UFC of bare knuckle. They're competing with people like Game Bread, bare knuckle, and stuff like that. So there's more to come, and I'm sure it's going to be fun. So, but moving on to the main event, Eddie Alvarez, the Underground King, versus Mike Perry. Like I said, fun fight. Eddie Alvarez was actually putting it on Mike Perry in the beginning. He did not let Perry just take the reins and run away with a win. Although Perry did get the win, and he did it in a similar fashion than he has in the past, which is by making someone quit. Actually, it wasn't even Dr. Stoppage. The corner threw in the towel. Now, that's not like one of those, oh, this bitch, punked out, or he quit on the stool, and none of that. I mean, yes, you could say he quit on the stool, but it was more of an advice because he knew he had an orbital fracture. We'll go over his injuries after a few of these visuals here that I'm going to have for you. But yeah, he had significant and legitimate injuries to his face. But Mike Perry got busted up too. Mike Perry had lots of swelling. He was bloody. I mean, he's always bloody. He always gets cut some way or another. But Eddie Alvarez lived up to that Underground King nickname that he has, and the presence felt in the ring with him, because he does hit hard. He's always been a great striker, and he's always been one of those guys to bring a fight to somebody for sure. And he's never been a pushover, regardless of what's happened in the past. He's always brought exciting and fun fights and violence, and that's why he was fighting for the King of Violence. He did the damn thing against Chad Mendes as well, and he looked really good in that fight. So to come in and fight the reigning uncrowned king of Mike Perry, everyone's been getting dropped by Perry. So Michael Venom Page, Luke Rockhold, Julian fucking Let Me Bang Bro, whatever the fuck his last name is, I cannot remember right now. Julian Lang. But yeah, every one of Mike Perry's bare knuckle fights have been fucking crazy, insane, and fun. So you always got to watch out when Mike Perry's fighting for bare knuckle. But of course, Perry got in some good pictures here of both of them just busted up, bloody. Look at that mouse under Eddie Alvarez's eye. I mean that's telling right there. And he got busted up on both sides. Mike Perry's bloodied up. This is just brutal but fun. If you like the violence, and you like the if you just are entertained by the strikes and the blood and the injuries, you're gonna see the pain on these guys' faces no matter what. And again, it's fun. I mean, there's nothing more you can say. Mike Perry just looks the part, and he looks like a guy who would be a bare knuckle champion, and I'm sure he will be. He's not an official champion. He's just the King of Violence right now, but it's a strap. It's a belt. He made his own belt before, the platinum belt, and he was walking around with that thing, and it looks similar to my belt back there. Like, that's just kind of what he did. He went to an online store, made himself a belt, and he was carrying it around. Now he's got a legit badass belt, because they got the BMF belt in the UFC. Mike Perry, being a former UFC fighter, has to have a smile on his face when he looks at that belt and says, I'm the fucking King of Violence, and this is a more violent sport than MMA. Now, MMA is brutal and can be crazy looking as well when somebody gets head kicked, KO'd. Some of the shit that happened this past weekend, guys getting power slammed on their fucking heads and getting their heads bounced off the canvas. If you watch that, you know what I'm saying. That's brutal. That's violent as well, and that makes you cringe if you're not used to it and stuff like that. But dude, bare knuckle, the visual aspect of BKFC is something that is hard to challenge unless you're doing bare knuckle somewhere else, like Game Bread. So it's fun. It's exciting. That's all I can say. There's nothing more. You just got to watch and appreciate the violence. And Mike Perry is now the king of violence. So here's a little more. I mean, look at Eddie Alvarez's face. Holy shit. Those bare knuckles, you land them flush and they do damage. A grazing shot, it does damage. Almost anything that you throw and touches the face of your opponent, it's gonna do damage. But it's fun, and Mike Perry is making it super exciting. There's another big shot to the chin of Eddie Alvarez. The Underground King can take a fucking punch. That's for goddamn sure. And everybody knows that if you're an MMA fan and followed Eddie Alvarez's career for the wars he had with Brent Primus and Michael Chandler, and he fought Conor McGregor. He had wars in the UFC with other big name fighters. I mean, he's done it all, and now he's in BKFC, seemingly having fun doing it as well. He understands he got beat up, and he was graceful in defeat, but he knew that he couldn't keep going with those broken orbitals. But one or both, I don't even know for sure, but that's what it was. So Mike Perry gets that win, signature flip at the end of the fight, because of course he's hyped, and that's the kind of guy he is. And here we go with Eddie Alvarez. That's the post-fight press conference. With his face all busted up. Look at that. The left side. Holy shit. His left side, our right side, if you're looking at the picture, that's some damage. That entire left side of his face is fucking swollen. His eye is swollen shut. That he said confirmed 2 fractures in my left orbital. One was a fracture, would have been, what did he say? One was, wow, whatever. Would have been a thing of beauty to close out the show for the fans. I felt great. This game is wild and unpredictable and can be. And unpredictable as can be. It's why I love it. The show goes on. I love you guys. So, I mean, he's in good spirits and he's fine. Besides half his face looking like that guy that got slapped with slap fighting. I don't know if you saw that dude's face blow up after getting slapped to shit and not going out. Apparently the slap fight league signed that guy, I guess, or something. I don't know. But Eddie Alvarez got it from getting punched in the face with bare knuckles. So craziness, man. But it's fun, and these guys are warriors and they're fucking savages. Check out the next one. I'm assuming it's gonna be next year, because we're pretty close to the end of the year now, and a lot of these organizations are wrapping up the year for themselves. So moving on to some regular boxing from bare knuckle boxing. So you go from bare knuckle boxing to traditional regular boxing, and of course it's a little lackluster compared to BKFC, considering all the action and damage and stuff. But these two guys are sure to put on a good fight if you're a boxing fan. Even if you're not a boxing fan, Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis. I mean, shit, these guys are definitely talking the talk. So I want to see him walk the walk. Back up all that shit talking. But during their face-off or whatever, they didn't talk a lot of shit. Their corners talked a lot of shit. But both these guys, similar records. We got Devin Haney 30-0, so undefeated, and Regis Prograis is 29-1. But Prograis is the current champion, so he's going to be defending his title against Haney. I believe, or is that backwards? Wait, it says, I think Haney's challenging for Prograis. Fuck, man, I don't know. I don't follow boxing enough to know, but I do know it's a big fight. I've heard of both these guys. I'm not as in depth as I am in MMA, but It should be fun. It should be a good fight. It's been built up pretty well. And like I said, they had a face-off today, and it was pretty intense. So yeah, it looks like Haney is definitely fighting for the title that Prograis has. So that should be good. Let's see. It is happening Saturday. You can watch it on DAZN. I'm not sure. I assume. I don't know exactly how DAZN works. If it's free or if it's a paid fight. If you just have to have the subscription to DAZN. But yeah, so this should be a good one if you're a boxing fan. This has been the most talked about fight all week. I've heard about it for a couple weeks now, so I'll be waiting to check out those highlights and see who comes out the champ. And maybe Prograis defends, maybe Haney is NU, who knows. But continuing on the traditional boxing trend, we have some news coming out this week. PBC on Prime Video and Premier Boxing Champions announced new multi-year rights agreement beginning in 2024. Prime Video is set to become the home of PBC's pay-per-view events, championship bouts, behind-the-scenes docuseries, and more. So Prime is getting into the boxing game now that Showtime's out, HBO's been out. People are looking for TV deals, looking for broadcasting deals, basically somewhere to broadcast these fights. And PBC's jumping on the Amazon Prime Video fucking train, just like One Championship, who's been putting fights out for quite a while now. So One Championship on Prime, now PBC Boxing on Prime. What other kind of combat sports is Prime Video gonna bring out? Who knows? They delved into the NFL pool for a little while. I mean, they are now, actually, right? I believe Thursday nights, right now, tonight, there's a fight. There's a game on Prime Video. So Amazon's doing big things. No surprise there, but for a while it was just Amazon. It was just Prime Video. So and now we're jumping into sporting events. So should be pretty cool. If you're a Prime member, I mean, it's good for you. It's looking like these are going to be for the pay-per-view bouts. So basically you have to be a Prime member to get those pay-per-view bouts. But it's just another foot in the game for Prime Video for combat sports, and we'll see how far they take that. Because with Bellator merging with PFL and PFL looking for broadcast deals separately for the two different kind of organizations, who knows? Maybe Prime gets into the MMA game, like the more traditional route. Because One Championship is MMA, obviously, but they have so many. It's more of just an all-encompassing kind of combat sports organization, because they do Muay Thai, grappling, all that stuff. So yeah, that's the news for traditional boxing, as well as the results from bare knuckle boxing from this past week. So let's get into the UFC on ESPN 56 card from last week. Craziness here. I'm gonna touch on a lot of these fights because they were so damn good, and that's really all I can say. From top to bottom, we had a pretty fucking good card, surprisingly, considering, I mean, this is UFC Austin though, right? So that was really the hashtag for it or whatever, because it took place in Austin, Texas, and they usually do it big when they go to Austin, especially because now there's such a community of people there that weren't there before. You have all these celebrities that have uprooted and made Austin, Texas their home. Mostly comedians, because Joe Rogan moved over there and convinced a lot of people to go with him. And they're building that comedy. Well, they've built that comedy scene up over there. They had one before, but now it's way more prevalent. Having Joe Rogan there, having him open his own club that is comedian ran, comedian owned, comedian everything, like friendly for sure. That it is made to be for the comedians, and it's so big right now, and there's so many people that are relocating to Austin, Texas. So of course the UFC's recognizing that, being that Joe Rogan's one of their own people, they're gonna recognize that. So of course they're gonna throw big events when they go there. Even though it was a fight night, they put on a show, and it was good. The main event was Beniel Dariush versus Arman Sarukian. You had Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green, Rob Font versus Davison Figueiredo, and Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastellum. That pretty much was the main card. Let's see, who else? Joaquim Silva versus Clay Guida, Dustin Stoltzfus versus Punahele Soriano. We had Misha Tate on the undercard, Cody Brundage on the undercard, Jakar Close, Jared Gooden, Veronica Hardy. I mean, Veronica Hardy got a win by split decision. It was a hard-fought win, but she continues on that win streak she had going. That makes her 2-0 in the past. Oh, she's on a 2-fight winning streak is what I'm trying to say. I thought it was a 3, but it's only a 2. But yeah, her last fight was against the most recent Ultimate Fighter winner in Juliana Miller, who's a tough fighter. So that was a big win for Veronica Hardy. So she just continues on that win streak. Jaron Gooden gets a win over Wellington Turman by submission in the second round. Rodolfo Bellato versus Ihor Pretoria. That was a pretty fun fight. Bellato gets the win by TKO in the second round. And then we get to one of the craziest things to happen, especially for it to be on the undercard. We had, I don't know that this has ever happened before, but we had two slam KOs in a row on one card. So 2 on one card is enough, but to have 2 in a row on one card, that's crazy. I don't think that's ever happened before, and you know, it's been a while since somebody's gotten a slam, basically a slam KO. That's what they call it here too, a KO by slam. Jakar Close slams Joe Selecki on his head, bounces his head off the canvas. I feel like this one, yeah, I would definitely easily say that this one was more just crazy and impressive than the second one, which was in the very next fight after this one. And that was Cody Brundage and Zachary Reese. But I mean, they're both just insane. But for some reason, the way that Jakar Close slammed fucking Joe Selecki on his head, like it was full on, all the force to his head bounced really high off that canvas, and then, you know, he was out. So here's Jakar lifting him up, and then there's the slam where he made first contact with the canvas. And man, these guys need to just let go of these submissions if they're getting picked up, because it's not worth getting slammed on your head like that. To lose that way, become that kind of highlight, it's not cool. But that's how knocked out he was. Of course, Jakar went for the follow-ups, but I don't know that he landed any. He might have landed one, but it was pretty obvious that Selecki was out cold after that slam. So yeah, big ups to Jakar Close, man. That was a fucking impressive win. You know, Jakar is kind of a streaky fighter, you know, but this makes 3 in a row for him. Brandon Jenkins, Rafa Garcia, and now Joe Selecki. His last was a decision win over Rafa Garcia, but he got that TKO win against Brandon Jenkins. All of these coming off of the one fucking, whoa, that was weird. Something just popped up on my screen out of nowhere. All of this comes after the bad KO loss that Beniel had against, that Jakar had against Beniel Dariush, who fought on this card as well. So, you know, they kept highlighting that and playing it, and, Jakar has to go to his fight watching highlights of him getting knocked out. But I would say he's more than making up for it right now. He's on a 3-fight win streak since that loss, and 2 of those being by KO, TKO, especially this last one being super impressive. So Jakar, I hope, continues on. He's an Arizona guy, trains here. I don't know if he's from here, but he definitely trains here. He talked about being Benson Henderson's sparring partner and stuff like training partner for a long time and stuff like that. So I'm hoping for good things for him, and I hope he keeps on the win streak instead of jumping back into that. He's got to make his way up the rankings, so he's got to keep winning and got to keep fighting those big names. Just keep getting bigger and bigger ones on the way up. So good for Jakar Close. I'm happy for him. But let's get to the other slam of the night. Cody Brundage versus what seemed like the local favorite, Zachary Reese. This one was pretty bad too. Let's see, I believe Selecki had Jakar in an armbar, and that's how Jakar slammed him on his head so cleanly like he did. But Reese had a triangle locked up on Cody Brundage, and Brundage just power slammed him rampage style. And he did follow up with a couple punches after that, but I mean, Reese may not have been out cold the second he hit that mat, but it was shortly after, if it wasn't right when he hit the mat. So it was a big slam. You could see the force because his head's going up in the opposite direction, so he was dropping him down fast. And I was right, he did punch him after the fact, and I believe that first punch is what took him out right away. I mean, obviously he was concussed already and out of it, and then he gets hit once or twice again solidly, and that puts him out completely. So good for Cody Brundage, man. That was a hell of a slam. It was a hell of a way to come out. First round, minute 49 seconds. And I mean, both of these happened a minute and 40 seconds into the fight. So pretty fast KOs there. And then shortly after that, we get Miesha Tate coming in and doing work on Julia Avila. She pretty much dominated most of the fight. I mean, she just looked like the Miesha Tate of old. She just dominated Avila. It was a good fight. It was a good showing for Miesha Tate. She had her in dominant positions most of the time. I don't know that Avila had anything that was too big, too notable on Miesha, but she goes from that mount and starts in on a little bit of ground and pound. You can see her legs she's got the legs wrapped up. She's heavy on the upper body, and trying to get some punches in, soften her up. Avila's trying to hold her from posturing, but Miesha was just strong this night and winds up moving her around, taking her back, and then sinks in the sub and gets her to tap in the third round by submission by face crank. She didn't even have it under the chin. She just had that hard of a crank on that attempted kind of choke, but it's a face crank because it was across the chin, kind of Khabib versus Conor style. But it was nice to see Miesha Tate get that win. She was hyped about it and happy, so that was good. Congrats to Miesha. Moving on to the first fight of the night on the main card, we had Dustin Stoltzfus versus Punahele Soriano. This one was pretty fun as well, but it just seemed like Punahele just couldn't get a rhythm. I mean, he was landing good hard punches, but he just seemed he just didn't seem like he was fully there. Looked like he was trying to throw big heavy strikes, and Dustin was just overcoming everything and doing well with his striking and landing a lot. But I like Puna. He's a cool guy, and he's a fun fighter. But like I said, he just didn't seem like himself this time. Just couldn't seem to put it together, and couldn't seem to defend well, getting landed on, and you know, Dustin was doing a good job of landing all the strikes that he was throwing. So in the end, Stoltzfus gets the submission win by rear naked choke in the second round, and Puna unfortunately gets submitted, has to tap, and that was it for that fight. So then we move into Joaquim Silva versus Clay Guida. Clay Guida being the animal that he is. The cardio on this fucking guy, he's 41 years old and he's still fighting like he's 23, 24. I mean, I don't know how this guy has so much fucking energy, but even getting slapped up by his brother in the you know, right before he gets in the cage. The Guidas are interesting, all of them. So, but Clay, you know, Clay's still out here doing the damn thing and fighting, but unfortunately he gets the loss in this one by unanimous decision. I heard a couple people saying it may have been a lot closer than it seemed, but regardless, I do believe he lost, and that makes him 0-2 for his last two fights. And yeah, that shit, he's like 1-3 in his last 4 fights, so not a lot of wins there. Too many losses in a row. It's what it seems like it goes for him. He gets like a win, 2 losses, 2 wins, a loss, a win, 2 losses, a win, a loss, a win, a loss, 2 losses. So he kind of has a weird pattern, but and unfortunately the higher side of that pattern is losses. So Clay needs to clean it up a little bit, or maybe even think about calling it quits soon. But he has so much energy. I mean, he's still a decent fighter. He just can't seem to hang with some of these younger guys and getting up in the higher levels. But you know, he still did what he does, getting those takedowns, putting the pressure on. But Silva's landing big elbows, big knees, just kind of being an all-around great fighter and showing off all of his skills, and then getting some ground and pound in, and just kind of staying on top and being in a dominant position against Clay leads him to a unanimous decision win. Then we move on to one of the bigger fights. Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastellum. This was Kelvin Gastelum's return to 170. He was fighting up in the 185 division for a while, having weight cutting issues and everything like that. He missed weight a few times. It wasn't good. Moved up to the middleweight division and now made the move back down to the welterweight division. But I would say it didn't seem like he had trouble with the weight cut, so that was good considering all the problems he had in the past. But he just, I don't know, he just didn't put it together in the cage. Sean Brady is a fucking badass, and that's really all I can say about him. You know, he had that loss to Bilal Muhammad, and you know, people are holding that against him, talking shit. And that was a TKO loss to Bilal. But you know, he talked about that fight and everything. That is his only loss. So you know, he was undefeated, and of course, as soon as somebody that's undefeated winds up with that first loss, everyone's got to talk shit and act like he wasn't worth anything, and the undefeated record was just a fluke and all that bullshit. But I do think maybe Sean Brady just had a bad night. Bilal Muhammad is also a really good fighter. Regardless of what anybody says, Bilal's a great fighter. So it's a tough matchup for him. And Kelvin Gastelum is a great fighter as well. But on this night, Kelvin just couldn't keep up with the ground game, man. It just seemed like he didn't know what to do on the ground, which is weird. He's a great wrestler. I don't know that he's great on when it comes to grappling and jiu-jitsu, but you know, he is a great wrestler. But it just seems like he doesn't want to deal with the ground game, and he doesn't it's almost like he doesn't know what to do on the ground, even though I know he does. I definitely know he does. But during this fight, it just didn't seem like he wanted any part of it. And Sean Brady definitely recognized that and put him on the ground and dominated him there. That's where this mostly took place. It went to the third round, but in the end, Sean Brady just stayed in the top position, in the dominant position on the ground, and just, tired out Kelvin and got a submission. Winds up submitting him by Kimura in the third round. So as you can see here, this is just the frustration of Kelvin Gastellum not being able to get up. Every time he thought he was going to get up, Sean winds up moving around his body and getting into a different position that didn't allow Kelvin to get up. So didn't look good for Kelvin. Very good for Sean Brady. Here's the Kimura to end it. I mean, that's like picture perfect. And Kelvin gets a face full of ass and gets his arm cranked on. So I feel bad for Kelvin, but at the same time, at least he made the weight easily. And if he can just get all of his skills honed in at 170, maybe he can do a little better. But he needs to figure out that ground game and decide that he wants to work on that a little more, or figure out what he's lacking in that portion of his game, because it just seems like on the ground he's never interested to say the least. So unfortunately for Kelvin, he gets that loss. Sean Brady wins, and we'll see what's up next for both of them. But the next fight was another fighter moving divisions, which was Davison Figueiredo moving up to the bantamweight division from the flyweight division. So 125 to 135, and he's fighting Rob Font, which is a hell of a way to bring in Davison Figueiredo into the weight class. But I mean, Davison is a former multi-time champion, so when it comes down to it, you give him a big fight in the upper weight class, or in the higher weight class. So I mean, he can handle it. He's a great fighter, and he showed it here, because in the end he did get the win. But Rob Font put up a decent fight. But Davison, everyone was wondering if his power, what was going to translate over to the higher weight class. Is his speed going to be there? Most of the time, the power is there, because if it was there in the lower weight class, it'll be there for the higher weight class. But you move up a weight class, and then you got to deal with bigger guys as well, who might be able to take that punch better. So maybe your power isn't going to carry over. It's a weird thing when guys switch up on weight classes. Whether you're going down or going up, they both have their pros and cons. They both have, there's a worry about something not translating in, or carrying over, whether it be your power, your speed, your strength. There's always something to worry about when you're switching weight classes. So, but Davison looked good. He looked good in this fight. He definitely gave Rob Font all he could handle. And, he kept up the energy. He landed a lot of punches and a lot of strikes on Rob, but Rob is a game fighter too, and he's definitely a tough opponent. And he's fought a lot of big names, so he's no stranger to fighting big name guys. He's fought Corey Sandhagen, who he lost to, unfortunately. Marlon Vera, though, Jose Aldo, Cody Garbrandt, Marlon Moraes. He's fought a lot of big names. So, and he's gotten wins and losses from all of them. So, fighting Davison is nothing different. It's just a different face in front of you. But as far as competition goes, he's game for that, but he came up short in this one. And Davison Figueiredo gets a unanimous decision win over Rob Font. And yeah, I mean, you can see here the frustration for Font, because Davison's doing it on the feet, doing it on the ground, and Font was just not able to put it together. And take away from what Figgy was doing. Figgy gets the win by unanimous decision. Now we move on to me choking and a somewhat of a controversial fight. And the only reason being, now the fight itself was good, unless you're a Bobby Green fan. Not so good for you. I am a Bobby Green fan, so it sucked. But Jalen Turner's a great fighter. He's a good dude. He actually kind of idolizes Bobby Green. This was a late replacement fight, and Jalen Turner came in on short notice because Dan Hooker was supposed to be fighting Bobby Green in this fight. But Dan Hooker has that injury to his arm that he sustained from fighting Jalen Turner when Jalen Turner kicked the shit out of him and kicked through his arm, broke his arm as he kicked Hooker in the head, and Dan Hooker winds up continuing the fight for like 2 rounds with a broken arm. And I guess he came back too quick from the injury, winds up, and he said basically that the arm just didn't set correctly. It didn't heal correctly, really. So in the end, you know, he came back too quick and it wasn't healed correctly either. So he winds up re-breaking that arm and has to pull out of the fight. So Jalen Turner comes in on short notice to fight Bobby Green, which is not an easy fight. But Jalen Turner is not an easy fight either. And he showed it here. Bobby Green got his hits in on Jalen, but Jalen just is too much for Bobby Green. And, I mean, this was 2 minutes and 49 seconds into the first round. Jalen Turner gets a KO by punches over Bobby Green. And I'll tell you this, that punch right there did damage. And this punch, you can see, he landed flush on the chin and, you know, put Bobby out basically with that punch. And then Jalen winds up on top. As you can see, look how close the ref is, right? Now, I know the refs have a hard job and everybody makes mistakes, but man, this could have been a very costly mistake. Bobby Green was basically out by the time he hit the ground, but, you know, Jalen did what you're supposed to do as a fighter, which is continue to fight until you get pulled off. But unfortunately, the ref just didn't see a need to pull him off. And Jalen jumps on Bobby Green's back and just wails on punches. Shit, that fight went on for like 15-20 seconds too long, and that's a long time when you're getting big, heavy punches landed on you without defending yourself. And you have somebody as big and long as Jalen Turner just dropping bombs on you. You know, 15-20 seconds, you get about 6 or 7 good punches in there. And that's what happened. Bobby Green was out, probably woke up and went out again, because that's how bad this was. Bobby Green's face was really swollen, kind of like how Eddie Alvarez looked. I mean, obviously not the eye issue, but the side of his face was swollen up big time after the fight. It was a nasty, nasty KO. It was a horrible mistake by the ref. And I will give him credit for the fact that he did tell Dana White that he knew he fucked up. Now, that could have been a costly mistake, because unfortunately you let somebody get hit like that, and, you know, over and over and over again when they're already out, like that could cause bad damage for the future of Bobby Green. It could affect his career for the rest of his life. So that's why it's such a big mistake. It was egregious. Everyone was pissed. The commentators saw it and knew it right away. It was an obvious mistake, and it should have never happened. Like I said, I give the guy credit for, you know, owning up to his mistake and saying that he knew he fucked up. But man, that was bad, especially for somebody, I mean, for anybody really, but you know, Bobby Green, he's such a warrior and he's such a good guy. And to see him get knocked around like that, unnecessarily, you know. But Jalen Turner said, hey, I don't stop until the ref pulls me off, because you never know. Like, this game is crazy. And it's true, but say, you know, you see a lot of guys not go for that follow-up hit after they knock somebody out cold and that they're out before they hit the ground. But Jalen did his thing. You can't really blame him. And the ref is to blame, if anybody is, for this one. Jalen won fair and square, basically. He did what he was supposed to. He knocked out Bobby Green. and he followed up to make sure it was a done deal. And unfortunately for Bobby, it was not a good night for him. Bobby came on social media and talked about how, you know, shit happens, it is what it is, no big deal. He said he's fine, but he got up after they sat him on the stool, and they got him up off the ground. You know, he got off the stool and he stumbled over, and it was hard to watch him. You want to talk about stumbling like you're like fucked up, like super drunk. Like, that's kind of how he looked. I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but at the same time, I mean, it looked funny, but they should have never let him get up. But you could see how out of it he was, and that's what made it even harder to. It made it even a harder pill to swallow, knowing what had just happened and how it happened, and that it should have been avoided. So that was a shitty thing to happen for such a good fight, but it is what it is, and hopefully the ref learned his lesson. And you know, it's tough that they get criticized for not letting a fight go long enough. They say early stoppages and all of this shit, but then they, on the flip side, they get criticized for letting it go too long. But this one it was obvious, it was apparent, it should have never gone that long. Letting one extra punch in is fine, is whatever, but you know, that could change someone's life even. So these guys' job is to be there to protect the fighters, and he didn't protect the fighter in this case, so he failed at his job in this case. And again, I feel bad for the guy, but at the same time, he made a big mistake, and that's his fault. So hopefully we don't see much more of stuff like that. No matter what, you're harming the fighter physically, you're letting him get harmed, which, I mean, that's the game that they're in. But you know, unnecessary damage is never good. And then if you stop the fight too early, you're harming them with their money. You're doing something that could be a life changer for them. They don't get their second check, they don't get a possible bonus, they don't get a championship belt that could lead to you know, more money in the future too. So you rob somebody of all that, but you also rob somebody of their mental capabilities if you let them just lay on the ground out cold and continuously get pounded on. That's even worse than the money issue. So anyway, yeah, that one sucked, man, especially being Bobby Green. But that's how that fight ended up, and it's unfortunate. So we move on to the main event. We had, oh shit, we had me fucking up. I can fix this quickly. Oh no. Oh, this sucks. All right. Well, I guess things are just not wanting to cooperate, which is fine. We'll do this. Actually, this was the beginning. Arman Tsarukyan versus Beniel Dariush. Hey, I'll take a little bit of that over all the problems I had this past week on the Technically Unsound podcast. Oh my god. A wrong button push is nothing compared to no audio working, nothing working, and then not knowing why. So anyway, Arman Tsarukyan versus Beniel Dariush. This was a very bad night for Beniel Dariush. We're talking 1 minute and 4 seconds into the first round. The referee stopped this one as quickly as he should have. But it says KO by knee and punches, but I think that he faked the knee and caught Beniel with this right hand. Landed on the chin, turned his head and everything. And I mean, this was a nasty KO for Beniel. It's unfortunate for him. You know, I did say last week, I don't know, I just don't like Beniel to a certain extent. He's just not one of the guys that he's a great fighter. That's all I can say. I don't align with him with the way that he presents himself. A lot of people are like, oh, he's like the nicest guy in fighting and blah, blah, blah. And that's fine, but there's just something about him that rubs me the wrong way. The way that he talks to people, the way that he kind of acts is a little weird. And then there's the whole religion thing that kind of tops it off. But I mean, everyone can do their thing. It's fine. I don't have to be a fan of every fighter. But I did feel bad for Beniel in this one. It was a nasty knockout. And to be fair and to be honest, I don't like Arman Tsarukyan that much either. This guy's just like, he is a great fighter, and I feel like maybe he has earned it, but all he can talk about is how he will not fight anybody under him. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Beniel's one of those guys that has had to fight over and over and over again, fighting up and down the rankings to get himself a title fight before he was able to. Unfortunately for him, he didn't get the win in that title fight, but you know, he had to do a lot to get there. And Arman is just, I think what did it for me was him going after Bobby Green. There was a little altercation before everything went down. They were in the hotel lobby, and I guess Arman had heard Bobby Green say something like, I don't think he's a great fighter or something like that. And, you know, Bobby just speaks his truth all the time and doesn't sugarcoat anything, which is fine. You know, sometimes you talk shit, you gotta own up, you gotta answer to it. But the way Arman handled it is a little bit weird. And so he approached Bobby. They shoved each other a little bit here and there. Bobby was on his own. Arman had all of his crew with him. So I guess later on that day, Bobby and his guys bumped into one of Arman's teammates, or two of them or something. They got into a little scuffle. So there was some fun happening before the fights. So, but back to this fight, Arman Tsarukyan proves himself once again to be a great fighter and knocks out Beniel Dariush in 1 minute and 4 seconds. That makes Arman 21-3 now. That's his third fight, his third win in a row. Joaquim Silva being his last one. You know, he's calling for everyone to, like, he's saying he should be ranked even above where Beniel was ranked, instead of just taking his place at number 4, I think he was. He says he believes he should be number 3. But if you look at his schedule, he's fought some like higher ranked guys and stuff, but no, it's not like he's fought the best of the best, and now he's won. And he's saying he's not going to fight anybody outside the top 5, but yet he refuses to fight Dustin Poirier because Poirier lost his last fight. And he says Poirier's not in contention for the belt anyway, but yet Poirier's ranked number 3. So I don't know what kind of weird logic this dude has, but it's a little bit annoying. Just the way he talked about it fucking irks me a bit. So I believe he's a great fighter, and he proved it beating somebody like Beniel. But I feel like he lost to Mateusz Gamrot. He's refusing to fight him because he's lower ranked than what he wants to fight. It's like, dude, you lost to this guy. You should be trying to get that loss back. And that's probably one of the bigger names out of everyone else that you fought recently. So shut the fuck up and do what you're told. I hate to say it, but in this case, I feel like that's what needs to happen. And yes, he beat Beniel, and Beniel was, ranked high. But yeah, that's the first real big name, really highly ranked fighter that you fought. So you need to calm the fuck down. But that's just how I feel. Maybe I should watch my mouth, because it seems like Arman will find you, or if he sees you somewhere, he's gonna come after you. I mean, the fuck ever, man. I'm never gonna probably be in the same place as him, and I highly doubt he'll ever see this. So fuck it. I'm just saying this is how I feel about it. My bad. But that's the finish there after Beniel gets dropped, and Arman finishes, gets pulled off, made sure that it was over, and 1 minute 4 seconds into the first round, he KOs Beniel Dariush. So that about wraps it up for UFC Austin. Let's move into UFC Vegas 83. We got Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. This was apparently supposed to take place in Asia or China somewhere. I don't even know exactly where. Singapore. I don't know. I don't remember where it was supposed to be. But due to some kind of issues or something like that, they moved it over to Vegas. So this will be the last fight night of the year, happening in fucking the Apex. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind attending a fight in the Apex, just because I guess technically it's like a more intimate setting. You know, you don't have all these crazy stands, the crazy amount of what do you call it? You know, spectators and stuff. So it's a bit more closed in. You're closer to everything no matter what. But I don't know, it just kind of sucks to see them fight in front of barely any people when it's not necessary. So either way, this fight is happening. Let's look at the undercard, see who we have in the prelims. There we go. Shit. Not a whole lot going on down there in the prelims. Not a lot of notable names. It's a weird card. I thought it was a little better than that. The main card's not too bad, but the undercard is not great. As far as like notable names are, we have one undefeated fighter, 14-0, Tatsuro Tatsuro, yeah, versus Carlos Hernandez, who's 9-2. Luana Santos versus Stephanie Egger. Steve Garcia versus Maliquiz. Oh man, Costa. I don't know how to say that dude's fucking name. Hyun Sung Park is 8-0 versus Shannon Ross. And Keenan Song versus Kevin Jessette. Then we get into the main card, which we'll move into right now. We got Park Jun Young versus Andre Muniz. Jun Young Park or Park Jun Young. Dude, it's so hard to know which way is the right way to say it because everyone lists it differently. So we're gonna call him by his fight name, his fight nickname, which is the Iron Turtle, which is pretty fucking funny. And he may not like it. I don't know if he does or not. I've never heard him speak on it. But you know, if someone is saying that you kind of look like a turtle, but the Iron Turtle, there's a little respect on that. It's kind of a cool name. I don't know. It's catchy. It's funny, and it's interesting. So, and I mean, I can see why they say maybe the Iron Turtle, but it could be offensive, I guess. For him, that is. Anyway, the Iron Turtle, 17-5. He is on a 4-fight win streak. God damn. This is the guy, by the way, if you remember the last time I covered him, he did the little dance after he got a rear naked choke on Albert Duraev. He got up and did his little dance, which was pretty fucking funny, especially because he doesn't look like the type of dude that's gonna get up and dance, and then he gets up there and does it. So the guy's entertaining. He's a fan favorite too. There's a lot of people that are high on this guy because he's just they like him. They like his personality. He's got a cool fucking nickname, I guess. So people like him, and I'm with it. I'm in it too. So he's on a 4-fight win streak. Albert Duraev was his last fight. He's beat Eric Anders as well. No other real big names that are notable in there. So he's trying to continue on that win streak and make it 5 in a row against Andre Muniz, who is 23-6, and he is on a 2-fight losing streak. His last fight being against Paul Craig in July, where he lost by TKO, and before that was Brendan Allen, but he has wins over Eric Anders as well, Uriah Hall, Reynaldo Souza. So he's fought a little more of a notable, more notable names than the Iron Turtle, but he is on that 2-fight losing streak, trying to get back in the win column. So We'll see what he does to try to turn that around. But the Iron Turtle is a tough opponent, and he's on that win streak right now, so he might not want to give that up. It's going to be a tough fight. Middleweight, 17-5 for Jun Young Park, 23-6 for Andre Muniz. We'll move on to the next fight. Which I don't know if the order's wrong for me or if the order's wrong on here. Doesn't matter. Both fights are happening. Tim Elliott versus Sue Mudarej. God damn it. Mudajari? Fuck, I don't know how to say his last name. It's a tough one. But Tim Elliott steps in on short notice because Sue was supposed to fight. Let me get this real quick. Alan Nascimento, and that fight got canceled. I think Nascimento maybe had an injury or something. But so yeah, Tim Elliott steps in, short notice fight. It's a bantamweight fight. Tim Elliott's 19-13, so that's kind of a tough record. But he's a fun fighter. A lot of people know him, and he's always pretty exciting with his fights. He is coming off a loss to Muhammad Mukayev back in October. That was a loss by submission. Before that, he was on a 2-fight win streak. Both wins by decision. Looks like there's a lot of decisions on his record. So, but it's usually a high-paced and action-packed fight when Tim Elliott fights. We'll see what kind of fight Sue gives him. The Tibetan Eagle. All right. 16-5. He's coming off a loss as well to Matt Schnell back in July of 2022. So it's been over a year since he's fought. Before that, he was on a 3-fight win streak. So he's got a lot of decisions on his as well. So you might want to bank on a decision win or a fight to go to decision is what I'm trying to say. Taking the long route to get there though. But moving on, Nasrat Haqparast versus Jamie Malarkey. This is a lightweight fight. We got Haqparast 15-5. Let's see. 15-5 on a 2-fight winning streak, with wins against John McDessie and Landon Quinones. Pretty good names there, pretty good fighters. Lots of decisions here as well. Win or lose, a lot of it's by decision. He's got losses to Bobby Green and Dan Hooker, wins against Rafa Garcia and Alex Munoz, loss against Drew Dober, win over Joaquim Silva. So he's fought a lot of notable names, and he's on a 2-fight winning streak. So this one might go the distance unless Jamie Malarkey wants to change that, because he is 17-6, and he has a win against John McDessie as well. So they both coming off of wins over John McDessie. That was back in September for Malarkey. Before that, there was a loss. Again, a lot of decisions. So you could probably bank on this one going all 3 rounds. But hopefully it's exciting. Hopefully, they make it a good fight. Moving on to a fight that I'm excited about. Anthony Smith versus Khalil Roundtree. Anthony Smith, man. 37-18. That's a lot of fucking fights. But he's fighting Khalil Roundtree, who, he's an up and down fighter as well. Both these guys are. Khalil went on a tear after he went to Thailand and wound up becoming a Thai fighter of sorts. Came in with that Thai stance and kind of wrecked shit for a couple fights. But Anthony Smith is, he's struggling in that mid-range section where he's like not sure if he wants to just continue with the analyst/commentator work, or if he wants to, make another run possibly. But in between, he's just taking fights here and there, and had a rough time of it. for a little bit there, but his last fight was a win against Ryan Spann, which makes two wins over Ryan Spann in the last couple of years. But in between that, he's had 2 losses to Johnny Walker and Magomed Ankalaev. So he hasn't beaten anybody but Ryan Spann since 2021. In 2021, he also beat Jimmy Crute. So, you know, he's kind of not had a lot of fights as of late. Last 2 fights have gone to decision. His win being a split decision over Ryan Spann. So, you know, but Anthony Smith has fought a lot of big names, including, you know, John Jones in that title fight where, you know, he could have possibly walked away with the belt because of that illegal knee that Jones threw. I just got reminded of that one today when I was listening to some other podcasts. But yeah, so Smith fought for the belt against Jones. Other big fights, well, you know, he's got really good striking. He's decent on the ground, but you know, he's big knees. This is something he is good with, those big flying knees. If he can get it off, he's going to throw it. So that's definitely one of the things that his opponent needs to look out for. And then he's got submissions as well. He has won with submissions in the past. He is good on the ground. This being let's see, he got a submission win over Ryan Spann. Maybe this was the Devin Clark. But yeah, I mean, I feel like he hasn't really been the same since he fought Glover back in 2020. I mean, he had 3 fights in a row, 3 wins in a row there, which were good. But you know, it just seemed like it took a lot out of him, that Glover fight, where Glover's like kneeing him in the face and knocking out teeth and shit, which was intense. But yeah, his opponent, Khalil Roundtree, like I said, is good with the kicks, good with the knees, especially since he, you know, made that trip to Thailand and got into Thai fighting. He's 12-5 overall, and he's on quite the streak. He's on a 4-fight win streak with wins over Odessis Bukakis, Carl Roberson, Dustin Jacoby, and Chris Dawkins. His last, before that, he lost twice in a row. So he's been on a pretty good streak. And he's looking to extend that win streak. So, but I feel like this is going to be a good fight because him and Alex Smith seem like just a good matchup, basically. Khalil will come out swinging for the fences right away. Anthony Smith likes to get in a firefight for sure. And he's durable, and he's able to, you know, take some damage and make it a fun fight. And Khalil's definitely willing to give the damage, and he'll take some of his own as well. So this should be a fun one. I was excited for it when I saw the matchup. I believe this might have been a late notice fight. I think Anthony Smith, let's see. Shit, maybe I'm wrong. No, I guess not. Oh, that's right. Roundtree was taken off of the card that he was supposed to have fought last weekend, but they took him off that card and brought him over to this one. So that's what it was. But yeah, let's move into the main event. We got Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez. This should be a fun one. I'm almost more excited for the Anthony Smith-Khalil Roundtree fight, though, honestly. But this is a bantamweight fight. Song Yadong always involved in a pretty good fight, honestly. Chris Gutierrez has been in on a tear lately. Let's see, Song Yadong 20-7 versus Chris Gutierrez, who's 20-5. So pretty similar records there. Let's see. Song is coming off a win over Ricky Simone back in April of this year. Before that, he lost to Corey Sandhagen, and then before that, he was on a 3-fight win streak. So yeah, I mean, a lot of TKO KOs on his record recently. So this could be a banger. he definitely goes for the knockout and can get knocked out. So his loss against Corey Sandhagen was a doctor stoppage as well, so he takes a lot of damage, and obviously didn't get finished. The doctor had to stop it. So yeah, that just goes to tell about his toughness and durability. This is against Ricky Simón, his last fight. Big punches on the ground to get that TKO win in the 5th round. And then this big punch against Marlon Moraes as well. I mean, he got a win over against, is that Marlon? No, hold on. No, yeah, that's Marlon Vera. I'm sorry. I was looking at Marlon Moraes. This is against Cheeto. That's why I almost said Cheeto. He has a win over Cheeto Vera, who's, fighting for the belt coming up soon in February. And Cheeto looks super different right there. It's kind of crazy. That's why I had to second guess myself. But he does have a win by unanimous decision over Cheeto Vera as well. But that was back in 2020. So anyway, good opponent there for Chris Gutierrez, who is 20-5. Pretty well-rounded fighter. He is coming off a win over Hailey Alatang. That was back in October. Had a loss before that to Pedro Munoz in April of this year. And then he had that nasty KO of Frankie Edgar, that disrespectful shit that he did to Frankie Edgar. I don't have it here, but oh, yes, I do. I'm just kidding. There it is. But that was a nasty KO over Frankie Edgar with that big flying knee. So yeah, that's like one of the most notable fights for him, because man, that was bad. Frankie had gotten KO'd before that too with that front kick from someone else. So yeah, that was a bad one for Frankie, but good for Chris Gutierrez making the name. Oh, it was it was Cheeto Vera that KO'd him. Oh my God, Frankie Edgar had 3 KOs in a row. Now that I'm seeing it. Anyway, we're not talking about him. We're talking about Chris Gutierrez with that nasty knee. Then a big punch here on Alatang, I think. Anyway. Yeah, so this should be a pretty fun fight. I mean, both of them have a lot of decisions in there, but they make it exciting. It could end fast. They have some first round KO knockouts or KO wins. So, yeah, should be a decent card. Not a bad main card. Prelim card might not be so great. Who knows? It's always tough to tell when you don't know a lot of the fighters down there. So, but that about wraps it up. So don't forget to watch those fights on Saturday on ESPN, ESPN Plus. You got that Devin Haney, Regis Prograis fight on DAZN on Saturday as well. If you're a boxing fan or if you just keep up with all combat sports, watch them both somehow or just catch the highlights. I'm not sure. For me, I'll be watching as I can. As always, I have my phone on me at all times. And sometimes I just have fights on. So it is what it is, no matter what we're doing. I don't know that I do have stuff going on this weekend. It's about that time to get our tree. So we'll be getting that probably tomorrow night, decorating on Saturday with the kids. It's tough when they don't both live here. It was tough before because we had to deal with work schedules and everything like that. And now it's even harder because Trent doesn't live with us anymore. But she's definitely coming over to decorate the tree. I think we're going to the street fair. Stuff like that. So should be a decent weekend. I'll be happy to get my wife back tomorrow. She's been out of town since yesterday for work. I'm hoping I don't have to go out of town for work next week, but there's a slight possibility. But I'm pretty sure no matter what, I'll be back in time to do the podcast from right here in my makeshift studio with all the fun stuff in the background and everything like that. The good camera, the good mics. But, I make things work on the road too. So as for everything else, I appreciate anybody that was watching live. Thank you for watching any other time that you happen to catch this. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell and tell a friend, share it with somebody. Tell them to support me. And if they like MMA, maybe they'll like my show. And it'll just help me, you know, the likes and the subscribes and the shares and all that. That'll all help me grow my channel. I am trying to grow everything. It's just, you know, all the technical difficulties. I haven't been focusing a lot. I don't want to do a bunch of things until I have everything settled and straight. So hopefully we're on that pace right now to keep everything good. But yeah, we got a pay-per-view coming up here next week, so don't forget to tune back in on next Thursday at 7 p.m. Arizona time. Account for whatever time zone you're in. And don't forget to catch Technically Unsound. You can go to, I think we have technicallyunsound.com right now. It should take you straight there. If not, you can go to rumblepodcast.com still. That should still divert you back to our YouTube channel for Technically Unsound. The rebranding has taken place, and we started off with a bang, which was fixing all of my shit, which I appreciate, and I was happy that we got to be able to do that and, you know, live up to that name a little bit, even though it's kind of a play on words, but you know what I mean. Don't forget to watch that. We go live Sundays and Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Arizona time. And that's because of time change. Everyone else is out of state. For me, that I podcast with, DJ Tommy, DJ Magix. So, yeah, come watch us have all kinds of crazy conversations, talk about technical shit, and whatever else is going on in the world. Sometimes it gets deep. Sometimes it gets silly. Sometimes it's just funny. We have all of it. So come check it out. Sundays and Tuesdays. Don't forget to come back here next Thursday. And don't forget to watch the fights. Enjoy them. Have a good weekend. I'm out. Peace.